Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Good Wednesday morning. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. If you miss any of the show, we have KSGF.com, the on-demand section podcast there, Spotify, and it's my understanding we got a text yesterday confirming we are back on iTunes. Is this correct?
I'm so excited. After probably a year, maybe even 2 years of fighting with them.
Stupid.
I know.
Stupid.
Yeah, it was definitely not on us. It was all Apple and iTunes. They refused to create us an account. We had an account. We had the username. We had the password. They wanted us to set up two-step authenticator, but they wouldn't allow us to do it because it said that we had asked, like, the security questions that you have to fill out. Well, our account was so old that we didn't have to have security questions, so we kept going around and around and around with them. So finally, after, like I said, like 2 years, we were able to get an account. So we're on Apple and
Are
iTunes.
there backup episodes, or is
Yeah,
it?
it's updated.
Okay.
I know.
So, for those of you who prefer as your platform iTunes, you can once again catch us there. Doesn't it seem like it is the platforms that are supposed to be the most leading edge when it comes to intuitiveness and
Right.
just that it is like dealing with idiots sometimes, the most simple basic things, and you
So
just can't get it done.
at one point, I had talked to this gal over at Apple, and I told her the whole situation, just as I explained it to you guys. And she said, "Well, we are like a third party with like your Apple iTunes and your Apple Music. You'll have to get into your account to reach out to that customer support." And I'm like, "I can't get into my account. Can you give me a
Jiminy
phone
Christmas.
number? Can you give me an email? I don't have that information available. How do I get that information? I don't know." So infuriating, guys.
Yeah, well, it's back.
It is.
Did we even ask how? Like, what happened?
Nope.
I
I
saw
didn't
the
even.
email that said,
Yeah.
"Hey guys, good news." It was from our person at corporate, I guess, that handles some of that
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, I'm wondering exactly what happened.
I don't know.
Anyhow,
I'm thankful that he was able to get it taken care of because I just couldn't handle it anymore.
yesterday or last night was this constitutional amendment event that this was Tom Martz, Darren Chapel, right?
Yes.
And I think Angela Romine was,
Yes.
she put it together. And Tom had texted me during the show asking me to mention it again, and I was like, yeah, sure, and then I forgot, so shame on me. But you recorded it,
Yeah.
correct? And you said that it went pretty well.
It went very well. It was very informative. And like you said, I recorded all of the audio. So I'm going to edit that up probably after the show today. And I'm going to put it up by each amendment on our website. We have an election tab whenever you go over to ksgf.com in the drop down menu, an election tab where you can see all information on just everything election. And so you'll be able to click on that, listen to the audio. You'll be able to see the official ballot language. But it was very helpful, especially if you read those and you read all of the jargon and you're like, so does a yes mean no, a no mean yes? What does that mean? It'll help you.
A massive thank you to Darren Chappell, Tom Arts, and Angela Romine, and anyone else who is involved in that, because it is such a tremendous tool for us to be able to use. Generally, the week of an election is when many of you will start really inquiring about the amendments. Oftentimes, you're like, "Oh, there's an amendment 7. I didn't even know that," and so it's not uncommon on any given day to get a text message on the Pyramid Roofing Company Talk a Text line saying, "Hey, have you talked about this amendment, and will you?" So to now have a place up at ksgf.com that we're going to be able to direct people, or when you text, say, "Oh, here is actually a discussion about it, an in-depth discussion about what it is, what it means," is so extremely valuable. And so a huge thank you to them for doing that. It also, I can't help but note just the amazing difference in approach between those that are the constitutionally minded, more conservative individuals versus the left, where they're just like, just tell me, how to vote. And and it's one of the great things I think, and it's a sign of intellectually curious individuals. No, we want to know exactly what is it? What does it mean? What does it say? Tell us as much about it as possible so that we can formulate our own decisions. And it's just such a remarkable difference in approach that we've got, in this country with voters. And of course, there's a spectrum. You get a little bit of in between there, but it's just such a notable difference in the desire to understand what it is that you're actually supporting and voting on. Um, Now, speaking of Kamala Harris, she did a bit of a Q&A before some journalists, specifically black journalists, I guess no whites allowed, at the event. And she talked about joy and a number of other things, though I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm going to play the audio. ABC News covered this. And clearly, ABC News, obviously a huge supporter of the Harris campaign, but as best as they tried, had to acknowledge that, yes, she really didn't give any specifics on anything. So, oh, really? Do you know why? Because there aren't any. Look at the weather coming up. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 91. And on Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
Oh, Billie Eilish. I don't know if you saw that when what was described as seeming like a hostage video, her and her brother Phineas endorsed Kamala Harris,
Oh
which is
boy.
no surprise.
Yeah.
Rich celebrity. I mean, the Democrat Party, they are the
Just falling in line.
party of the rich. But she demonstrated this disturbing trend it's been such a trend for some time. I don't even know that people notice any longer. That just the darkness in describing, 'cause it's not just Trump. We have to stop Trump supporters. We have to stop these quote extremists. And I saw an article, didn't read through it, but Howard Stern says he hates Trump supporters, hates them. This is the party that once upon a time claimed when they go low, we go high. This is the party, and the people are supporting a party that used to say love Trump's hate. And they openly talk about hating Trump supporters, dehumanizing them. And if you notice, you don't hear that from Trump supporters. Whenever Trump supporters are asked, why are you supporting Donald Trump? They give you the reasons. Now, sometimes they may be bumper stickerish, like, because I want to make America great again, but that's a positive thing. It's about making things better. It is about policy issues, real-life policy issues, securing the border. In fact, I'm going to play some audio later where the CBS National was visiting through there in Nevada, I believe. Yeah, Nevada. And they went around talking. They went to numerous restaurants, only found one person that was supporting Kamala Harris. Everyone else was Donald Trump. And the reasons were policy reasons. Many of them had to do with the border, securing the border. Of course, the economy is another one. And so when Trump supporters are asked, why do you support Donald Trump? It is for tangible policy reasons that will lead to what they believe, based off of Trump's first time in office, will lead to a better country. When you have particularly these rich celebrities out there encouraging people to vote for Kamala Harris, it is generally accompanied with demonizing Americans that don't support her. Referring to the political opposition as a dictator. Referring to the millions and millions and millions of Americans who simply want a better country as being, quote, extremists that are dangerous. I think that tells us something. The media can try all they want to claim, and it's hysterical. Kamala Harris just so full of joy. Really? Really? Do you listen to the reasons that are given by people who say they're going to vote for her? It's this almost an obsessive, all-encompassing darkness about how much they hate somebody else. That's not joy. That's not positive. That's certainly not unity. And I would think at some point, well, I suppose I do understand how it is that they rationalize it. Now, the human in me, the intellectually curious person in me, wants to say to those people who are driven by hatred, what does that tell you? What does that tell you when one side, the side that you're not on, can give reasons that you may not necessarily agree with, but the motivating factor is to make life better here in the country, and talking about the border, talking about the economy. And those are the two big ones. But the Kamala side can't really give reasons why they support Kamala without talking about how much they hate or how evil or how dangerous the other side is. And I suppose that conversation would revoke, or in which there'd be a response that would be like, well, it's because they are evil. You are evil. I mean, that's how much of a dark grip. I mean, it's really sad when you see it. And I would note, if you look back in history, anytime there has been any political power, be it one person or a political party, that manages to convince a massive segment of the population that the other segment of the population is evil. If you look back in history books, that's not good. Those people usually aren't the ones on the side of what's good and positive. Those people usually are not people that when we look back say, "Oh yeah, we should be like them." But as I say, history doesn't repeat itself. People choose to repeat history. And here we are again, and unfortunately, it's in the United States of America, where we used to have differing opinions and differing levels of support for political parties. But we didn't have a culture in which one side is trained to just hate the other, to dehumanize the other, to go out there and feel virtuous in accusing the other side of being a danger to the country, like so many other countries had done throughout history, and some do today as well. These are not good places. That is not unity. That is not joy. That is not humanity. And telling yourself that, well, we're different than past groupings of people who had that approach because we're good. And we're correct in the fact that they're the really, really bad, evil guys that are a danger to the country. Well, I mean, every society of people that gets assimilated into that dark approach of hatred towards fellow man, they always believe that they're the good guys. I mean, the average citizen in Germany during the reign of Hitler, as they'd walk, to take their kids to school and go to work, that were supportive of the regime, they didn't think, yes, I'm an evil anti-Semite Nazi. I'm this horrible, awful person with humanity. They thought that they were doing right. They were assimilated into this belief system that they were virtuous. And they had to hate that group of people over there. They had to see that group of people over there as dangerous, as a danger to the country, to national security. So we have no choice. They deserve it. It's their fault this is happening to them. It's really sad to see people choosing to repeat history, particularly such dark moments in humanity in terms of the approach and how you deal with groupings of people with whom you disagree. Coming up, I want to play ABC News correspondent covering Kamala Harris yesterday as she answered questions during her visit to the National Association of Black Journalists. And long story short, the ABC White House correspondent said, yeah, really, there weren't a whole lot of details. Kamala Harris speaking with the National Association of Black Journalists because segregation is cool again in Philadelphia. ABC News White House correspondent covering that story.
Yeah, look, she was pressed about how her policy towards Israel and Gaza might be different than that of President Biden's, and she did not directly answer the question or offer any policy specifics, but she repeatedly said that we need to get a deal done. Take a listen to what else she said here.
We are doing the work of putting the pressure on all parties involved to get the deal done. But let me be very clear also. I support Israel's ability to defend itself. And I support the need for Palestinians to have dignity, self-determination, and security as we move forward and get a two-state deal done.
Since Harris announced her candidacy, she's been very careful, Kira, to not have too much daylight between her views and that of President Biden. So everything she said on foreign policy very much tracks with President Biden's views. Now, there were multiple times, though, during this interview where Vice President Harris did not offer a specific answer. Instead, she pivoted and returned to her talking points that she wanted to hit, particularly on a question about whether or not Americans are better off today than they were 4 years ago. But really, this panel interview with NABJ, it is a really rare moment where we've seen Vice President Harris take extended questions from reporters. We have not really seen that much since she became the candidate. So this was notable. I'm told from the campaign that she plans to step up her interviews and her campaigning, but she's going to mostly be doing that with local interviews and non-traditional outlets. So really a rare moment here today.
All right, so that's the ABC coverage of this event. There are a number of different things about this to discuss. I think it's interesting that although it was regarded as rare, other than Kamala Harris's remark regarding wanting to give the terrorist organization Hamas its own country, the ABC News correspondent noted that she didn't give any details on anything. But we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more of Kamala Harris not giving any details. She was asked a question about joy, and she's going to talk about abortion and tell lies about that. She also, anytime you hear Kamala Harris say, "Let me be clear," she is getting ready to say one thing, but then actually say another. In this instance, it's just a little side note, a fun game one can play with oneself. She says, "Let me be clear. Now, Israel has the right to defend itself." But then she goes on to explain that she and Biden want to give Hamas their own country. And, of course, Hamas has been fully clear in the fact that, if that happens, ultimately they're just going to destroy Israel. So she says, "Let me be clear, they have a right to defend themselves," but then explains how it is that they want a future in which Hamas has its own country and then will destroy Israel. Because Hamas has not been in gray area on this. They're pretty clear about their plans. You heard it. You hear it when it comes to assassination attempts. Let me be clear. There's no room in this country for political violence, but then goes on to talk about how evil and dangerous Donald Trump is and how he must be stopped at all costs. Otherwise, he will be a dictator and the country will all fall apart and we'll probably all go to prison. So you start off with a little headline that says one thing, but then whenever you start giving a position or spewing rhetoric, it's the opposite. And it's coming anytime she says, "Let me be clear." Going to get a traffic update, couple other things on this, plus CBS talking with voters in Nevada and noting that of all the restaurants they went to, and she said, "I talked to every person at all the restaurants. There was only one Kamala Harris supporter there."
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 91. And on Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
I don't want to get too into the details of the comments Kamala Harris made yesterday regarding Hamas and Gaza. But we can't normalize giving terrorists their own countries. And that's what this administration is pushing. They gave the Taliban a country. And now their second big foreign policy accomplishment they're attempting to achieve is to give Hamas another country. What do you think, messaging-wise, that says to terrorist organizations? At least with the Biden-Harris administration. I mean, it really is a remarkable difference in approach. Donald Trump was all about destroying them. Destroy them. Decimated ISIS. And it wasn't just, blowing up the guys on the ground, but Soleimani, top terrorist general of Iran. There were quite a few Democrats that were upset that he did that. You can't do that. He's a very well-respected terrorist. Don't you understand? Iran, they're going to retaliate against the United States. Of course, he told the Taliban what the consequences would be if they caused any sort of problems as we were planning to leave Afghanistan. Any problems at all. 18 months, none at all. Then you see the difference in, cause and effect. The Biden administration and how it was just became very clear to terrorists across the country that we're back in play again. We are no longer on our heels. Donald Trump isn't president, so we can once again start calling the shots. And they began doing that. And they were given Afghanistan, not just Afghanistan, but an Afghanistan I'm sure that they never imagined they possibly could have continued financial support from U.S. taxpayers, a military unlike anything most countries ever have hopes of having, military bases, again, financial support. It was just an incredibly and unbelievable advancement for that terrorist organization. And then if that's not enough, want to give Hamas a country? I mean, it's like the more people that are innocent you can slaughter, the greater the reward from the United States under this administration. All under the belief that somehow that's going to make terrorists not be terrorists any longer. That giving them millions and millions and millions of dollars, giving them their own countries, giving them, military assets, that's going to make terrorists go, you know what, I think we're going to give up this life. It's just not paying off. I mean, what insanity is that? This is just this should be common sense stuff. I mean, it does not take a scholar to understand this. It simply takes observational skills of what people's desires are and what they are willing to do in order to get them. And then countering that, behaving in a manner that contradicts that. Bill Clinton even talked about this back when he noted that Hamas was smart. Of course, when Donald Trump notes it, well, he's complimenting terrorists. This idea of, just give them a state, give them a state. And then, of course, her declaration yesterday, which is, we're putting pressure on both sides to come to an agreement. You don't have to put pressure on Israel. They have over half a dozen times agreed to the peace deals or the ceasefires that have been crafted by this administration, and had Egypt involved for a little bit of time, and some other countries as well. And this is what Israel gets from this administration. Treated as if they're part of the problem as well, when they are the ones that over and over and over and over again say, okay, we'll sign on to that. And then Hamas over and over and over says, no, we're not going to. And then the audacity of Kamala Harris to be like, well, we just are really continuing to put pressure on both sides. What pressure is needed? I mean, there isn't any for Israel because they continue to comply. This is the world that we live in with this administration, where we have to suspend all reality and just pretend as if what is isn't, what isn't is. I'm going to take a break, and then so Kamala, she talked about abortion, which, of course, even the position on abortion they lie about. Even the one issue that they do have a position on, that they don't really waver in terms of their allegiance to it. They lie about, to what extent their allegiance is. They lie about Trump's position on it, and again, red flags. When you have two sides on any particular issue, and one side is as transparent as possible, they want you to know their position and their opponent's position, but the other side, this would be the Kamala Harris side, lies not only about their position, but their opponent's position. This tells us something. Generally, when it comes to any sort of issue, the side that wants you to know the most information about the issue is the one telling the truth, while the side that wants to hide the information and they lie to you about their position, they're generally, not the ones who are telling you the truth, just by definition. She was asked because, of course, this, it was the National Association of Black Journalists, segregation. Oh, ask her about joy. Oh, joy. I believe that the Harris campaign has set a trap for itself. And I want to explain that coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, I'm going to try to kind of make a highlight of some of your text messages here, so I can address those coming up. But I do want to play some audio that it was from Kamala Harris's Q&A with the Segregated National Association of Black Journalists yesterday, and I believe that it is indicative of a trap that the Harris campaign may have set for themselves. And here she talks about joy.
Interest.
Before we conclude, Madam Vice President, Joyful Warrior has been used to describe
You
your
didn't see that just a
campaign.
minute ago, though. Okay, I'm back to my joyful part.
And your opponent and Republicans have at times weaponized you laughing in campaign ads, for example. Why is joy important to you to insert into this election? And what do you make of Republicans using that as a way to suggest that you're not a serious candidate?
Now, and I think you all recognize that this is why people in this country do not have respect for journalism on a national level any longer. Because the questions are always, Kamala Harris, you're just so amazing and wonderful. Tell us about that. And by the way, do you mind commenting on why Republicans hate you so much?
Well, sometimes I think, and I'll say to whoever the young people are who are watching this, there are some times when your adversaries will try and turn your strength into a weakness. Don't you let them. Don't you let them. I find joy in the American people. I find joy and optimism in what I see to be our future and our ability to invest in it. I find joy in the ambition of the people. I find joy in the dreams of the people. I find joy in building community. I find joy in building coalitions. I find joy in believing that the true measure of the strength of a leader is not based on who you beat down, but who you lift up. And I think we should all find joy and have a sense of optimism about who we are as Americans and what we mean to each other and what we.
Do you think at some point she's like, I should probably stop talking, but I can't, so I'm gonna just keep going? Because that's kind of what that felt like.
Well, or she doesn't know if she should stop.
Yeah.
She doesn't, because she's not really making a point. Generally, if somebody's asked a question, once they feel as if, okay, I've answered this question. But when you are saying nothing, essentially, there really isn't necessarily a natural stopping point. So it's one of the two. It could be a combination. Like, she knows that I probably should shut up, but she just can't figure out what that final thing is to say in order to sum up. But, I mean, it's just gross. I find joy in the she finds joy, she says, in lifting people up, not beating them down. I'm sorry. Yeah, where's the Kamala Harris that talks about Trump being a dictator, his supporters being dangers to democracy? Is that the lifting up that she's talking about? I mean,
you're just nitpicking.
Yeah, I'm nitpicking, aren't I? It is so just gross, and I don't know that any human being talking has ever made me physically feel as if I might gag, other than her. And trust me, there are a lot of people I can't stand to listen. You hear them, and you can't stand it. Of course, Hillary Clinton, Claire McCaskill, ugh, God help us all. But they just never made me almost physically gag when I listen. Joy, oh, joy. The ABC News report I played earlier referenced the fact that she really didn't give any details on anything during this Q&A. But her people said that we're going to see more of this, and I believe that this is probably true. Here is what I think is going on. It appears to me as if they considered the debate against Donald Trump to be a success. And they're basing that off of polling where a majority of people said that they felt that she won. Now, that's separate from, it depends on your definition of won, That's separate from, well, did it really move the needle much? And the answer to that is no, it did not. But I think in their minds, they made it out of there. They recognized that it could have been a total disaster. They came up with a game plan, and that game plan was to have canned answers that don't really say anything. And when it was done, in the moment, in the context of we must avoid this being some sort of horrific train wreck in which she word salads herself all over the place, it was a success. I think that there is a confidence there with her team and her that they can replicate what they did in the debate in these particular settings, these very specific settings that are going to be very friendly settings in which they may very well, provide the questions. And we know that they've done this. There were those two stories, and I don't remember if it was Biden or Harris, but you had those. I think that it was radio. One was in Pennsylvania, and I think one was in Wisconsin, in which they said, yeah, they told us these are the questions you have to ask. One didn't do it, the other did, and then got let go or something. But so we know that this is the way that they operate. They're like, here are the questions that you're going to ask. And so I believe what's occurring here is they're trying to replicate what they saw as a win in the debate in these other forums, where there will be, if it's not word for word predetermined questions, at least categories. And then just do what was done in the debate. Don't really say much. When it comes to abortion, of course, issues like that lie. Talk about a two-state solution. But when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the border, you just don't really say much. This is the trap, however, I believe that they're setting for themselves. And that is that it did not work during the debate. While people said, yeah, I think she won the debate, you had these individuals that were undecided, leaning this way, that way, across the country that had a similar response and to one another, and that is, but I still don't know what in the heck she stands for. I mean, she's not saying anything. And while you may be able to get away with that once or twice, if you start actually explaining what it is that you're going to do, if your plan is to not give any explanation, your plan is to replicate the say a lot of nothing because you thought it worked once, that is going to turn people off. Those undecided voters who aren't going over to Kamala Harris because they don't know what she's going to do, if time for them to vote comes, whether it is mail-in, early, or on Election Day itself, and they still don't know because Kamala Harris is out there talking about joy and her tax or her plan for the economy is reminding you that she was middle class too. That's not going to, Trump, they may not like the guy, but they know what he has done has worked. They may not even know what he's going to do now, but they remember that they weren't worried about feeding their kids. They weren't worried about losing one of the vehicles because they can't afford insurance. They weren't worried about, rent or mortgage payments in the way that they are today. And they know that was under Donald Trump. And so if this is a strategy that they're going to stick with, I don't think that I think it's going to cause a slow but sure erosion of potential support for Kamala Harris. Coming up after the news, do want to get to some of your text messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. We were talking off air, and one of the comments that the ABC News White House correspondent made about Kamala Harris's campaign is that they said they're going to start doing more of these style interviews, but with maybe non-traditional or local markets. And the question is, well, why that? Well, I think one, they can make it look like because it's more about the local people, but also they believe, and perhaps rightfully so, that they have a greater likelihood of compliance with somebody in some small market or some podcaster. If they're told, hey, we'll do this interview, but these are the questions you have to ask, there's a greater likelihood of compliance than they may get with the national media, even though the national media is trying to help get her elected. But I suspect that's probably the driving reason behind that. Springfield's Talk 1041, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Having Emily with House Theory Realty represent us was a wonderful experience. She's incredibly professional, thorough. Her communication with us, superb. I'm sure she works with many clients at once, but she had a special way of making my husband and I feel like we were her top-only clients. Her advice and support, helping us really narrow down our search area and home needs, was invaluable. She was polite, available, friendly, very knowledgeable. She always seems to ask the great questions I didn't think to ask. This is the real estate agent you want on your side. I look forward to working with Emily again in the future should our home needs change. That's Emily's Zillow page. She can, of course, also be found on Facebook, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She has her own website as well. I think you can get to it from there. And you will see consistency in feedback from people who have utilized her. And one of the things they all have in common is we recommend her. So it's not just me telling you based off my experience. Sarah's done the same thing, but so many people throughout the listening area as well for all of your home buying needs and selling needs. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Some of your text messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. The biggest lie Kamala continues to tell is that she brings a new generation of leadership. How do you bring a new generation of leadership when you're literally part of the current generation of leadership? This is her go-to answer when she can't come up with anything else. How could anyone even be on the fence with her at this point? I know this may be redundant, but they are able to get away with it because they have assimilated their base into believing that issues don't matter. What matters is they are good and Trump supporters are evil and an existential threat to the country. And so that's all that matters. He and you, the millions and millions of Americans who support his policies, are the evil dark forces knocking on the other side of the door, and they don't know anything about you other than you're really, really, really scary. And you must be stopped at all cost. And that's the exact verbiage they use. It reminds me of the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to worry about spoiling it for you because it's been out for a long, long time. But the premise of the movie, which I actually thought it was a fantastic, I loved the storyline of it. And it was this village of people who lived out in the middle of national forest, and it was all part of this formation of a group of people that they had met through, I think it was like a grief group. They had all had tragedy in their lives, largely because, bad things had happened, a family member murdered and so forth. And so that some of them decided that almost as a form of an experiment, because I believe William Hurt, I think he was in it. He was a professor or something. And so decided to see if they could build this perfect life, perfect village away from everything. And because it was in a national forest, they got permission to keep it, away from everyone else. And they raised generations there. And the way that, it was all not modern at all. I mean, as you're watching the movie, you're thinking it's taking place in the 1600s or 1700s. And the way that they kept in the village, in this clearing in the middle of the forest, the younger generations from wandering out, because obviously, how do you keep them from going out and exploring the woods? I mean, this is what young people do. You're curious, you explore, because they didn't want them to find out that there's a modern world out there. It was to create these scary monsters. And their compliance was based upon the fear that they were created of these others that are out there that will get you. And of course, they, as the village elders, they had the secrets of protection. They created these little caveats in order to be able to control. So, for example, I think the color red was said to attract the evil ones that are out there. But there was an agreement they couldn't. The evil ones couldn't come into the clearing, into the village. But the whole point was to keep the younger generations who didn't know what was going on from exploring out into the woods. And as long as they followed these rules, you see, as long as they followed these rules that were set up, then they would be protected. And when you see that movie, you can see similarities in the approach that is taken by the left in this country today. And that is to tell you how scary those people are over there, how you need us. If you don't listen to us and do what we say, then life as you know is going to be destroyed, because they are an existential threat. Now, they don't even really know why. You know, they just say things like danger to democracy, existential threat, extremist. If they do offer up reasons, it's consistently things that aren't true. You know, well, Trump wants to sign a federal abortion ban. Well, okay, that's not true. Trump on that 2025 thing. Of course, they can't even explain what that is, but nonetheless, well, we've been told that it's evil. We've been told it's scary. We've been told this. And when you see the way, now in the village there, arguably, motives were noble. It was an attempt to create perfect life in which nothing bad happens. Of course, you would learn that because of human nature, you cannot prevent bad things from happening. That's something that is a lesson in the film. But when you recognize that in the film, those who wanted to be in charge controlled everyone else through fear. And trust. You know, you trust us, you need to be afraid. We are the ones with the answer. And you see the way that the left and the Kamala Harris campaign is campaigning and presenting itself. It's very, very similar in nature. And I mean, it's nothing brand new, obviously. Many regimes have ruled this way. You need to be afraid of those that are not compliant. If you do what we tell you to do and don't ask questions, then we'll make sure to protect you. You just have to support us. It's nothing new. This is something that, as I noted earlier, people repeat this history. I've never liked the cliche or the phrase "history repeats itself," because to me that takes that absolves the people, that absolves us as humans who choose to make these decisions, almost as if, well, we have no choice. History just repeats itself. No, people choose to repeat history, unfortunately. News update. I'm Nick Reed.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 91. And on Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
Quickly, two more of your text messages. Nick, my question is, in 4 years, will the next Hitler and destroyer of democracy be J.D. Vance, Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott? Is this the hate-filled playbook and rhetoric from Democrats from here on out? Will assassination attempts become the norm for Republican presidential nominees? If so, then they are truly pathetic. That from Paul. Well, the short answer is yes. They never step back anything. Whatever rhetoric they hit is the new norm, and tomorrow they always step it up. There will never be a Republican candidate for president in the future that isn't a danger to democracy, that isn't some sort of threat, that doesn't deserve to be imprisoned, that doesn't deserve to be surveilled, that doesn't face letters that are signed by former members of the CIA explaining why it is that they will be a disaster for the country. That's never going to happen again. The Democrats have taken us to a place in which we will not, at least for, I would argue, I mean, unless they just start getting destroyed because of the divisive nature in which they're trying to win elections, they're not going to change. And frankly, to some degree, it's been working for them. In addition to the fact that they don't really have anything else to campaign on. I mean, they can't campaign on. What are they going to campaign on? The only issue that they campaign on, and again, dishonestly, is abortion. They can't say you're better off under our policies than the policies of the opposition. So that's the only thing that they have to go to. I've noticed something on several different news outlets. They keep referring to the violence of Trump. What violence? I'm asking what violence? There is no violence. Well, this again is where, now, of course, there were people at the Capitol that were violent in nature. But as usual, and this is what they're referring to, that one moment in which people did the opposite of what Trump said. Trump said peacefully. There were some that were not peacefully. And we know for a fact, because the government admitted it, there were untold numbers of undercover agents working on behalf of the FBI there. So how much of it was them pushing is still an open question. But even that violence they lie about. They still falsely claim that police officers were killed in the Capitol on January 6th, which is absolutely not true. What they don't mention is that there was one person murdered, and that was a Trump supporter by the name of Ashley Babbitt that also happened to be a veteran. And I say murdered because she had no weapon on her. She was not in close proximity to where she could do any harm. In fact, there were other law enforcement closer to her than the Capitol Hill police officer who shot her. There was no warning given. There was no stop or I'll shoot. That's murder. They don't mention that one. Instead, they talk about killings that never actually happened. So that's the violence that's their go-to reference. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Louis' big play, Juanita K, October 1st. You can win tickets to see the beloved Bluey live on stage when you register at ksgf.com today. That show again, Juanita K. So you can find out all the show details and get yourself registered. You can do that right now if you would like to. CBS stopped off in Nevada to visit a number of restaurants that is in an area that is a mixed bag of voters. So this isn't a heavily Republican area, heavily Democrat area. They went to just try to get a variation of voters and their thoughts on the election. And so what I'm going to play for you, it's 2 bits of audio, but they're put together. And the first, which is the larger bit, is the reporter for CBS in these restaurants. And then Adriana Diaz, who's the reporter, you'll hear her. She's back in the quote studio because they show it, and then she then is there in talking to the other co-anchors about, oh, this is what I found, and this is what I thought was interesting. So that's what you're going to hear with this following audio of CBS talking to voters in Nevada.
What issue is most important to you? I'm extremely concerned about the border. They gotta go. People are coming here seeking asylum. They're coming here for the freebies. And when people talk about immigration, they're thinking we're saying we don't want immigrants of any kind, and that's not what people are saying. People are saying that there are people who have come here legally. Why do they get pushed aside to allow people who have not even worked one day in our country, have not paid into the system?
I took my brisket and mac and cheese with me to catch Ken Lasker with a to-go order.
How closely are you watching this election?
Oh, very closely.
He was the only Harris supporter we met at lunch, even though Washoe County has historically been pretty politically split.
We had
Like that.
so much fun, but what was really incredible is in every single restaurant of the people willing to talk to us, we could only find one Harris supporter in every restaurant, and we left no stone unturned. I approached every single person.
All right, so that's the CBS report. By the way, one of the women who expressed her concern about illegals coming into this country is a woman of color. This goes back to a point I was making earlier, and that is whenever people who support Trump are asked why, they talk about actual things that are occurring. They don't talk about existential threat to the country. They don't talk about, that sort of stuff. And as much as the media would like to portray Kamala Harris as under attack because she's just so joyful, see, they don't listen. This is one of the things that's amazing when you listen to these commentators, and they will just shake their heads, talking about the media folks on the left, shake their heads like, just can't figure out why. Why would anyone support Trump? Then you aren't listening, because they tell you. They're more than happy to tell you why. Well, it's oftentimes for different reasons. This is Nevada, so you're going to hear a lot about the border. Obviously, the economy is another one. But they just refuse to listen. It's an amazing thing to watch. We went out on those streets to try to find out why people like Donald Trump. And they get answer after answer after answer, and then sit around and they're like, I just don't understand these people. How can Donald Trump be winning? What is the point in interviewing people to find out why they support Donald Trump if it's just like this wall gets put up where they don't listen? And I juxtapose that to, Billie Eilish endorses Kamala Harris. Why? Quote. Well, this is she and her brother both posted videos. Your life depends on it. Saying we cannot let extremists control our lives, our freedoms, and our future. Phineas said, quote, we cannot let extremists control our lives, freedom, future. The only way to stop them and the dangerous Project 2025 agenda is to vote and elect Kamala Harris. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Whatever that means. Again, it's fear. Not because of, this policy is going to make things better for the country. This policy is going to make things better for my family. Fears and lies. I mean, I don't know how much more, he can't be any more clear that Trump has nothing to do with 2025. They just find these random boogeymen and then tie it to Trump, whether there's any connection or not, And these people just eat it up. Our lives depend on it. My God, we're all going to die. The Taylor Swifts, the Billie Eilishes, these multi-millionaires. Now this is where I do get, if I'm going to get close to angry, this is where it is. The people who are lower middle class people in this country, the vast majority of people, who really genuinely do not know how it is that they are going to manage to handle another 4 years. It's generally economically. They're going to lose their home. Are they going to be able to, what's going to happen with the food prices? All of these things. I mean, it's so punishing. And then you have these aren't even rich. These are uber rich celebrities that are out there telling you, no, we need to continue on this path because your life depends on it. They don't suffer the way that the average American does. They can afford those policies. I think it's fantastic to be just so wealthy you don't have to worry about it. I think that is great. I love it. But when you are out there pushing policies that hurt others and make it more difficult for others to be economically successful, that really ticks me off. And it is so much like the Hunger Games, where you have this massive gap between these elites that they can afford the totalitarian policies of the regime. I mean, they're not the poor ones living in this city over here or that city over there. They don't suffer the same way. I mean, you look at these people that they show up at these galas and they literally have servant-style people moving their dresses around so that a photograph of them can be taken that makes them look so perfect and picturesque. And the difference between who suffers because of the Biden Kamala Harris policies versus who doesn't. The person who is wearing the $50,000 gown with $500,000 earrings and they get a swag bag handed to them for free that is of a greater value than the average American makes in a year. That's a true thing, by the way. Some of these awards shows the value of things that they are just given is greater than the average annual income in this country. And then here there's some servant-style person that's frantically spreading their dress out on the red carpet so that picture gets perfect for them. And listen, I don't feel I don't feel sorry for them for having that job. A job is a job, and you do it well and you do it honestly. That is noble. What I have a problem with is the uber rich person pushing policies that make the person who's spreading their dress out more difficult to buy groceries at the end of the day. And for people that portray themselves as so compassionate, the coldness of that, the lack of any sort of compassion for the people who suffer, also they can virtue signal. Oh, look how good I feel about myself. It is such a detachment from reality and from the suffering that these uber rich celebrities have. And what's sort of sick additionally about it is that so many of these people are their fans. They love them. They will vote the way that they tell them to vote. And here they tell them to vote in a way that's going to make life harder for them. Because it doesn't hurt them any. They're still going to the galas. They still have the servants, their own. They still have the bodyguards that are armed in ways that they don't feel the average citizen who lives in the inner city and faces danger should. They're not going to send their kids to the same public school that you get trapped into with your kids. None of that stuff. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I know it's just Wednesday, but we will have our Friday Road show coming up on Friday at Scramblers, sponsored by Custom Shade Window Tinting, powered by 3M Window Film. All right, so we're only halfway through the show. If you missed any of it, we are back up on iTunes, finally. Spotify as well, and of course, KSGF.com. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 91. And on Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
I mentioned yesterday that we should not allow the anti-Semitism to become as normalized as it is in this country. The left-wing activists, of course, really organically activated after Hamas carried out the single largest slaughter of Jews since Hitler. And it was celebrated on college campuses and encouraged all across this country. And as we saw, those who were running the campuses, left-wing activists as well, just shrugged it off. Well, that's free speech. It doesn't violate our policies. I saw last week there was a college campus that banned fat jokes. Banned fat jokes. That same college campus has no problem whatsoever. I forget which one of the anti-Semitic breeding grounds it was, but with calling for the death of Jews. Well, that's free speech. There was a hearing on this yesterday in the Senate, and I wanted to play some of what Ted Cruz says because he goes through what is still occurring on college campuses. And it's dangerous when anti-Semitism or just targeting of any people is happening. But when it happens enough that people stop talking about it, or in order to cover for a political party, it stops getting reported on, this is when you get into some real trouble. And with the exception of very few, Fetterman's one of them. He may be the only Democrat who's been as forceful as he's been against anti-Semitism and targeting Jews. The Democrat Party, and this is what allows it to breed in an effort to win over the vote of those neo-Nazis and Hitler Youth, are staying silent on this and even covering for it in some capacity. So this particular issue was brought up, and here is, now what you're going to hear is Senator Cruz listing out some of what has been occurring. And then, of course, some left-wing activists storm the room, and one of them, I censored it out, yells, "Effing Jews." I mean, this is America 2024, where you can have a Senate hearing about the problems of anti-Semitism, and you have people storm in yelling, "Effing Jews." Here's some of Cruz, and, like I said, you'll hear the interruption in there as well.
Senator Cruz. Anti-Semitism is a unique historic form of evil. And over millennia, it is manifested in violence, mass murder, and genocide. October 7th was one of the darkest days in human history when terrorists murdered over 1,200 Israelis and took 251 hostages. Women and girls were raped. It was the single largest mass murder of Jews in a day since the Holocaust. In the wake of October 7th, we have seen anti-Semitism explode across the United States and across the world, but especially on college campuses. As the ADL has illustrated, from 2022 to 2023, the number of anti-Semitic incidents more than doubled in the United States. But college campuses in particular have become vile incubators of hatred of Jews. At Cornell University, in the aftermath of October 7th, one student made vile threats, including statements such as, "If I see a pygmalion Jew, I will stab you and slit your throat. If I see another female Jew, I will drag you away and rape you and throw you off a cliff." A student organization at California State University, Long Beach, circulated a flyer calling for a, quote, day of resistance in celebration of October 7th. You will note on the flyer is an image of a person parachuting with a fan attached, a direct reference to and a glorification of Hamas terrorists that used gliders to descend upon a music festival and murder 260 innocent people and take many more hostages. At Columbia University, the situation got so bad that the Orthodox rabbi on campus, Rabbi L.A. Buechler, had to make this public statement. Columbia University's public safety cannot guarantee Jewish students' safety in the face of extreme anti-Semitism and anarchy. It deeply pains me to say that I would strongly recommend you return home. This was directed to Jewish students as soon as possible and remain home. The rabbi had every reason to be concerned. At Columbia's campus, individuals yelled, "We love Hamas. We're all Hamas. Long live Hamas." At the University of Washington, the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors was told that she was called names, she was spit at, she was laughed at. She said she no longer felt safe on campus, and she was told to go back to the gas chambers. This is sick and horrific. At Columbia, when Jewish students were engaged in displaying the American flag and the Israeli flag, another student wearing a mask, because these protesters are oh so brave, they almost always cover their face, held up a handwritten sign saying Al-Qassam's next target. Al-Qassam is the military arm of Hamas. According to social media, this particular student is a wealthy student from Georgia. She's not Palestinian, but she has been taught lies and hatred, and she feels perfectly comfortable advocating the murder of her fellow students at Columbia. At MIT, students have reported they feel unsafe to go to class. And the MIT president has said that she would not discipline the students making those threats because if she did, they risk losing their visas and being deported. Throughout all of this, the Biden-Harris administration has been utterly absent. Does anyone doubt if the Klan were on college campuses terrorizing African-American students, threatening African-American students, that we would see the FBI there, that we would see prosecutors there, that we would see federal funding cut off to universities? Of course we would, and we should. But when it comes to anti-Semitism, the Democrats have a problem. I would note, this is occurring in blue states with blue governors because the Democrat Party is terrified of the pro-Hamas wing of their party. In states like Texas and Florida, we don't allow this. At the University of Texas, when violent protesters threatened Jewish students, police officers arrived and arrested them. That's what happened when you enforce the law. Every Republican member of this committee asked the chairman to hold a hearing on anti-Semitism in February. And yet we don't get a hearing on anti-Semitism. We get a hearing generically on hate because this administration, and this is the kind of anger and hate that is encouraged. You're now seeing the hate manifesting right here. Interestingly enough,
Please, the committee will come to order. The senator is recognized to finish his remarks.
So we now have a demonstration of anti-Semitism. We have a demonstration of the hate. Rabbi Goldfelder, let me ask you, has the Biden administration cut off the funding of any of the colleges that have allowed this hate? Have they indicted anyone for funding these violent protests? Have they indicted the people paying for the matching tents? Or have they sat there silently, and have the universities sat there silently while their students are terrified to go to class?
They have not indicted anyone.
They have not indicted anyone. Has any university had their funding cut off for allowing this sort of violent intimidation?
Not a single university.
I can tell you this. Next year,
Senator's
if there
time
is a
has
Republican
expired.
majority on this committee, you will see real leadership. And next year, if there's a Republican administration, you will see people prosecuted for this sort of violence. This is being tolerated with the looking away, the blind eye being turned from this administration and this Department of Justice. And it is utterly disgraceful. And under Title VI, any university that allows this should have their funding cut off.
Senator's time has expired.
And it is disgraceful. It's horrific. Dick Durbin, who's chairing that committee there, would follow up by noting that, well, Ted Cruz, when he chaired this committee, he didn't hold any hearings on this. Well, that's because this wasn't happening when Republicans controlled the Senate. We did not have the level of anti-Semitism occurring because Republicans haven't controlled the Senate in years now. So this wasn't an issue then. It is, this isn't rhetorical. What, aside from just the horrific instances that he described, but the difference in response between these universities in Republican-run states that sent law enforcement in and arrested these individuals, not ones that were just simply having some sort of peaceful protest, but those that were attacking Jews, while Democrat-run universities and Democrat states allowed it to happen, and they still allow it to happen. That's real life stuff. This is what is happening in this country today. And as Ted Cruz pointed out, the Democrats in the Senate wouldn't even allow a hearing on anti-Semitism. It had to be on, because, it's all equal. Islamophobia is just the same. No, it's not. Islamophobia in this country is nowhere in the ballpark of where anti-Semitism is. And when you hear example after example after example of spitting on, cursing on, physically attacking Jewish students, when you hear somebody storm into the hearing room yelling, "F the Jews," understand the reason Kamala Harris did not pick Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, as her running mate was to try to please these people because he was Jewish. And she made the decision that it was more important to try to win favor with those calling to finish what Hitler started than it was to have a Jew on the ticket. That was her decision, a deliberate one. And it wasn't one that's denied either. I mean, even the media openly talked about the fact that the Democrats can't really pick a Jew to be on the ticket. This is where the Democrats have brought us in this country in terms of hate, division, and anti-Semitism. Oh, but, Trump is the threat to freedom and liberty. The man who demonstrated no greater protection and friendship to the state of Israel than any other president. There's a town that was named after Trump in Israel to express gratitude. But when you live in a country in which the media is attempting to destroy one presidential candidate while getting another elected, you don't necessarily have a clear picture of the truth. As a country, Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Josh Hawley was, after that Senate hearing, also subjected to harassment, if you will, by anti-Semites. He was leaving the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on anti-Semitism, where he questioned Democrat witness Maya Berry, the executive director of the Arab American Institute, whose website describes herself as a longtime Democratic Party activist, because, again, this is where the problem is. As he did, a group of Code Pink activists could be seen on video swarming Hawley, confronting him with their pro-Hamas views. Hawley responded by telling them, "You're funded by Chinese money. You've got blood on your hands from the Uyghurs, every single one of you." Telling one of the left-wing pro-terrorist activists, "You're a disgrace." And where credit is due, credit should be given. Fetterman, he is the one high-profile Democrat that is unapologetically standing up against the anti-Semitism within his party. Fox News reporting he's accused the New York Times of spreading Hamas propaganda after the paper quoted Khalid Mashal, one of the terror group's most senior official, in a new report. In the interview, the Times wrote, Mashal made clear that Hamas officials are not in a rush to conclude a ceasefire with Israel at any price, will not give up their main demand for an end to the war and an Israel withdrawal. Fetterman posted a screenshot of the story's headline on X, rebuking the outlet for giving one of Hamas's most senior leaders a platform to promote the group's message. Fetterman wrote, "No idea why the New York Times would platform this propaganda from a terrorist." Well, I know why. They're anti-Semitic. He continued, "Undoubtedly, Israel will hold him accountable. Hamas is no different than World War II Nazis, and I fully support Israel's commitment to neutralize them." And it's sad that we have to say this. You would think all lawmakers in this country would be on the same page and be against neo-Nazis. The fact that Fetterman is the one overtly and powerfully outspoken Democrat to be against the neo-Nazis in his party is something that should be recognized and welcomed. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Coming up in the next hour, this kind of fascinating story about these pagers that exploded, killing off a number of members of Hamas. New York Post reporting that Mossad purportedly intercepted the shipment of pagers and installed these explosive devices. The latest on that coming up. I'm Nick Reed. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs, including tires. We talked with Tom Arts on Friday. He mentioned that he had a tire replaced and was heading in order to get more. Now, of course, they say, well, I've had my tires rotated at A1 Custom Car Care before. They sell them now as well. So you don't have to make a separate trip when you need new tires to a tire store. You can have it done with any of and all of your other vehicle work with A1 Custom Car Care. There was a text that came in. These texts come in every so often, and it is a question that is not an uncommon question. And it regards those of you who listen streaming, generally on your phone. And this particular question, why am I hearing ads for Potomac Family Planning Center every commercial break? Now, some of you who are streaming, you go, well, wait a minute, I'm streaming. I've not heard that ad at all. The thing about streaming is that what the commercials you hear are going to be different than the commercials that other people hear. Now, you may hear some of the same commercials, but it's not like on the radio where when you're hearing an ad, everyone else who is listening to the radio hears the same ad. The ads that run on streaming, and this applies to all streaming, I imagine, they base the ads off of where your phone is believed to be. And so if you are getting ads that are from somewhere else, it is because for some reason your phone thinks that you are somewhere else. And that could be a whole number of different reasons. I would honestly ask a provider, if it's something that you find to be bothersome or annoying, just go to your provider and tell them, hey, I'm hearing at my phone thinks I'm somewhere else. And, it could just be a software update issue. It could be a GPS issue. Maybe it's where your phone was activated possibly. So ultimately, that's why, though, because your phone thinks, oh, you're over here. And so the outfits that sell the streaming ads, and of course, some of them are our local ads that we do run, but if it's some other outfit that's selling ads and it thinks that you are in Dallas, Texas, then you may very well hear ads for some companies in Dallas, Texas. A lot of times people notice this. I've gotten the texts in asking, why are half the ads I'm hearing in Spanish? And it would be for the same reason. It's because for whatever reason, your phone thinks that you are somewhere in which there is a higher level of Spanish advertising than where you normally are. And so that's why it's sending you those ads. So that's why that occurs. It's not uncommon. But like I said, I would just go to whomever your provider is and tell them, hey, you're having this problem, and they should be able to get it fixed for you. There's this pretty fascinating story yesterday, and it was about all of these pagers that were blowing up, that were on the hips or the pockets of Hezbollah. And this is a new form of warfare, I guess. It does seem as if when it comes to some of the more clever ways of carrying out some of these, retaliatory strikes or defensive measures, the Israelis, they're pretty clever. They seem to introduce things to the world. They're like, I've never heard of that before. And according to the New York Post, Israeli intelligence service Mossad purportedly intercepted Hezbollah's shipment of pagers and loaded them with PETN, which is a potent high explosive. The Post writing that the Israeli spy agency Mossad allegedly intercepted Hezbollah's shipment of new pagers months ago and rigged them with high explosives, resulting in the stunning attack on the Lebanese terror group. According to a new report, Mossad agents reportedly placed PETN, which is a shorter version of a very long name, which is a highly explosive material inside the batteries of the pagers, sources told Sky News Arabia, according to a translation from the Times of Israel. The devices were then detonated by an external signal that caused the batteries inside to overheat, according to sources. The PETN is structurally similar to nitroglycerin. And so this is, again, being seen as a very clever, if you will, way to go about handling this. I mean, one of my takeaways was there's a bit of a stereotype with some of these terrorist organizations, be it the Taliban, Hamas, Hezbollah, that they live back in the Stone Age, and the fact that they're all carrying around pagers doesn't necessarily counter that stereotype. I mean, like, pagers, there's people still use pagers enough that you're getting new shipments of pagers. When was the last time you've seen anyone with a pager?
I don't think I've ever even seen
I've
a pager
never.
before.
We had pagers when I worked at another station. It was when I was another company in Joplin, and it was before everyone had. Today everyone has cell phones, but yeah, no, we had pagers, and
It's a very 90s thing.
Yes, very 90s thing, and I don't know. I just think that is humorous. that Hamas is. It's not just we've had these for 30 years. We still use them. That this was apparently a new shipment that they were getting. So I don't know. It must still be a thing where people utilize pagers. I'm wondering if this is because they feared cell phones could be tracked. They thought that, ironically, the pagers would be safer to utilize, which clearly did not turn out to be the case. But I've seen, and perhaps you have, a meme in which it shows somebody looking at a pager and it says 72 virgins on it. Like, that was the message right before the explosion. That would have been a very humorous touch. Is it 72 or 77? How many virgins do they think that they get?
Oh, now that you've said that,
more
I
than
think
anyone
it's
could ever
77.
want. Traffic in a moment, weather as well, now news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 91. And on Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
ABC's World News Tonight anchor David Muir may have driven away some viewers after the Disney-owned network irked conservatives during last week's presidential debate. But it's not just conservatives that should have been irked. It should be any American that wants news to be presented in a straightforward, unbiased manner. It should be any American that wants, if there's a debate being held, that the moderators don't participate in the debate on behalf of one of the people. On one hand, you can, I suppose, recognize the pleasure that Kamala Harris supporters get as they watch the moderators assist her. But on the other hand, it's like there's no shame. This doesn't embarrass you that they recognize they have to do this. I mean, I suppose it's just a difference in perspective. And I suppose it's in the context of self-respect and dignity that there are certain people that if they are in some sort of contest or competition and, you know, they want to believe that they are the best, that they can win. But then there are others that none of that seems to matter. And cheating's fine. Doesn't matter to them as long as they win. If they are supporting someone in a debate and they're observing that their person is getting help, that their own allies feel as if we have to help this person, so we're going to be on the attack for her. I don't know. I just would be like, hey, wait a minute here. She doesn't need your help. And let's not forget the gender component here. Why is it they feel like they have to help the woman? They did the same thing with Hillary Clinton when Donna Brazile of CNN gave Hillary Clinton the questions ahead of time. Lied about it, then got caught lying about it. And so you've got this whole presentation of Kamala Harris is so strong and she's so amazing and she's so capable and she is a woman, hear her roar, yet she's treated as if well, here, we need to make sure that we help her. You know, you combine that with the fact that the first interview she did, she had to have Tim Walz there with her. Her husband was out there campaigning for her. Here, a debate against a man, and it was very clear they felt that they had to help her carry her through it. And there's no feminist out there that say, hey, wait a minute here, this doesn't look good. Maybe she should not be treated as if she's not capable of handling this on her own. And I would argue if we're going to set a bar and have a historical moment in this country, it'd be nice for it to be a woman who can do it on her own, who doesn't have to get her start by being a side piece of a politician and then gets picked to be vice president because of, according to Joe Biden, she was a woman of color. Then get the nomination because the Democratic National Committee overturns Joe Biden's election in every state, and the big donors say that's the one, and pick her. And then she has to have a man there with her, men out there campaigning for her. She's got to have, ABC News help her in the debate. Is this really the presentation that we want to have for the first woman president? That's embarrassing. I mean, aside from the fact that, many people see her as embarrassing, just her presentation, but the way that she's gotten to where she is, maybe, just maybe, the first woman president should be a president that, actually gets there on her own. Because guess what? They exist. Kamala Harris is not a demonstration of what a strong, independent woman is in this country. And the fact that the rest of the world might view her as that is pretty embarrassing. Back to ABC. World News Tonight averaged 6.7 million viewers on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the 3 episodes following the debate, after averaging 7.6 million throughout 2024 leading up to the debate. The 12% drop in viewers for World News Tonight is more significant than slight declines CBS Evening News and NBC Nightly News saw when comparing the 3 episodes following ABC's debate to the year-to-date totals, although Muir's newscast remained the number one broadcast evening newscast. And I unless you just want to have someone tell you what you want to hear, I do not understand why people would watch a network like ABC or MSNBC and a number of the other networks. I mean, it's clear that if you're informed and you, as to how the networks behave, if you are wanting to really, truly be educated and informed on the issues, you are not getting your news from somewhere like ABC. Now, if you are just this Kamala devotee, Democrats all the way, and you want somebody to tell you what you want to hear, tell you how wonderful she is, just pat you on the head, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, Trump is evil, Trump supporters are bad, Kamala's wonderful, everyone loves her, then it makes sense to watch a network like ABC. In other propaganda news, NPR, National Public Radio, taxpayer-supported, falsely accused National Review editor-in-chief of using the N-word during a podcast interview with Megyn Kelly. Well, because, he's a white conservative, so of course, he's just going to casually use the N-word. Under the headline, conservative editor-in-chief appears to use a racial slur to refer to Haitian migrants, NPR asserted. The claim that Lowry said a word that he did not say, in fact, and of which there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever. Lowry was discussing claims that were referred to by former President Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance that Haitian migrants were eating pets or geese in Springfield, Ohio. Lowry mispronounced the beginning of the word migrants with a short I before correcting himself. Random internet trolls began claiming Lowry used the N-word, which, of course, anyone who listens to it or views it or watches it knows that that's absolutely not true. But that doesn't stop NPR. NPR, which has a frequency right here in this market, from falsely reporting. They know he did not say that. And in fact, the headline demonstrates that they know he did not say that. Appears to use. Now, what do they base that off? It doesn't appear to them. No, but, we found people on the internet who claimed it, so it appeared to them, so it's a legit headline. We have gotten to the point in this country where it is becoming more commonplace, and NPR is now, they have been for some time, but this is the latest demonstration, in which they will absolutely straight up knowingly lie about people who are not within their political persuasion in order to turn people against them by accusing them of saying one of the worst things that you can say in our society. And that's because NPR is trash. They're very lowbrow. They love to present themselves as, so sophisticated and news for the intelligent person. News for the intelligent person does not falsely accuse Americans of using the N-word when they know they didn't use it. That's what you hear on a show like Jerry Springer. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Wilder RV for all of your RV needs. And that's not just for the purchase of an RV, but perhaps you're going to, at some point, be thinking of retiring it for the season, or maybe you, when it comes to getting it back out for the season, if you don't travel south with your RV and you got to have that routine maintenance done, any sort of repairs, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, that thing there isn't working any longer. You got a little bit of a rust situation over here. You don't know where that came from because you take care of it. Wilder RV, they do all of that. And they have free on-site sewer dumps, offer propane bottle fills, huge selection of parts from hard parts like slide-out motors, appliance parts. In fact, when you purchase an RV, I think it's $250 they give you, kind of do a little shopping spree so that you can have a little bit of fun in addition to your purchase. So it isn't just the purchasing of RV that makes Wilder RV a destination, but it is that upkeep of it that is so very necessary if you want to keep the value of your RV. WilderRV.com, Clinton, Missouri, just a bit north of Springfield. There's this story in the Washington Examiner. Man pleads not guilty in alleged Trump assassination plot. Now, this is not the most recent assassination attempt. This is an assassination plot that most people are not aware of that was underway for a couple of reasons. One, because it didn't get to the point where he was within shooting distance of Trump. But also, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, as desperately as the media, they do not want Trump humanized. They do not want Trump to get any sympathy. They don't want Americans to stand up and say, no, we're not going to let some assassin choose our president of the United States. And then he might actually get some votes for it. And they feel the pressure that there have been two attempts. And so the fact that actually there was a third attempt or a plan to attempt is not something that they want to have to deal with. So they just ignore it. But there's another more important reason, and this is what I want to talk about coming up. This is an individual, and we've talked about him before. His name's Asif Merchant. And he was allowed into the United States by Homeland Security despite the fact that he was flagged as being problematic, potential ties to terrorism, and coming from Iran. They knew all this, and they let him in anyhow. Well, Ryan Routh, we're learning, was similar in fashion, that he was flagged by the U.S. during his return from Ukraine, but Homeland Security refused to probe him. So now, of at least the three, though the first assassin had those encrypted communications that had servers based in other countries, these other two individuals had both returned from overseas recently in proximity to their attempt or plans to assassinate Trump. Both were flagged. Our government was notified, hey, these could be problematic individuals. And in both instances, our government said, come on in anyway. Now, some are going to say conspiracy theories. You're a conspiracy theorist. But one does have to recognize that you can only use the incompetence card so many times. There are only so many times that you can make the exact same mistake over and over again and be like, well, we're just incompetent. At some point, you have to begin looking at this stuff and say, there seems to be a frequency of similarities of instances of so-called incompetence that open the door for something like an assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. Going to get a traffic update, details on it next. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 91. And on Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
Bluey's Big Play, Juanita K, October 1st. Your chance to win tickets at ksgf.com. You don't want to miss out on that. I was mentioning earlier that you continue to get these uber-rich celebrities who have servants that continue to encourage people to vote for Kamala Harris, something that economically is not going to have a negative impact on them, but the people who work for them, it will. And we're told this is compassion. And just even the visuals of Billie Eilish is the latest, and it's because, our lives are at stake, okay? And you see people like her who are on the red carpet, and here the servants are spreading out their dress, trying to stay out of the picture so they don't ruin the picture of the rich, famous person, and which I love the fact that people can get wealthy, but what I don't like is when they then encourage people to vote in a way that doesn't harm them but makes life harder for the servant people. And there's just a visual that I saw earlier, and Oprah was on with Jimmy Kimmel, and, some, I don't know the circumstances, but it was some person, a young person, I guess, who had never voted, and getting them to register to vote. And I thought, here's two of the richest people in the country, Oprah Winfrey, Jimmy Kimmel, encouraging a young person to register to vote for somebody that is going to make it. If Kamala Harris gets elected president, buying a house as a young person in this country, because of what has occurred over the last 3 years, has made it almost impossible. And it's just so Hunger Games-ish. These rich, famous, worldwide famous celebrities bringing up a citizen. Oh, come on up here. Oh, yes, let's get you. Now, you remember how it is you're supposed to vote, right? It's shameful. Man pleads not guilty in alleged Trump assassination plot. Now, this isn't the two white ones you're thinking of. This is the Iran-tied Pakistani national Asif Merchant, pleaded not guilty on Monday to terrorism and murder for hire charges for his alleged involvement in a plot to assassinate former President Donald Trump. We keep talking about 2 attempts. There's actually a third. It's just this guy didn't get as far as the other 2. Merchant arrived in the United States in April after spending time in Iran and allegedly reached out to someone he thought could assist him in killing a politician. The person he contacted reported this to law enforcement, and Merchant later met with the, quote, hitman, or hitmen, who were really undercover FBI agents, leading to his arrest in July. Attorney General Merrick Garland put on a show, we won't tolerate this sort of thing. Now, I've shared this information with you before, but I want to share it again because you put it side by side to Ryan Routh, the most recent attempted assassin of Trump, and you see some parallels. Some time ago, in reference to the man who just pled not guilty, Just the News reported FBI let suspect in plot to kill Trump into U.S. on parole despite terror ties and a trip to Iran. Nothing suspicious there. Mind you, Homeland Security knows that Iran is attempting to kill Donald Trump. They know this. This is not a secret. The FBI allowed Asif Raza Merchant, the Pakistani man charged with plotting with Tehran to assassinate Trump and others, to enter the U.S. in April with special permission known as significant public benefit parole, even though he was flagged on a terrorism watch list and recently traveled to Iran, according to government documents reviewed by Just the News. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force interviewed Merchant, fingerprinted him, and inspected the contents of his electronic device when he arrived at the George Bush Intercontinental airport. But then let him leave with the special parole that expired on May 11th, the memo states. Subject was polite and cooperative throughout the encounter, the FBI interview memo reads. Subject's notable travel outside of country of citizenship includes a recent trip to Iran, the country that this administration knows is trying to find somebody to kill Trump. Merchant wasn't arrested until July 12th, after a confidential human source ascertained that he had tried to line up assassins and was planning to leave the United States, the FBI said. The memo adds a new twist to an assassination plot that was uncovered before Trump was shot by a 20-year-old American in Butler, Pennsylvania, but not announced until earlier this week. Authorities say they don't believe there's a connection between the two assassination plots. The immigration records from his arrival in Houston on April 13th clearly stated in bright red that he was flagged by the Department of Homeland Security database with the identifier watch list and denoted as a lookout qualified person of interest. Despite direct travel to a country with known terrorist activity, the memo relays that Merchant was released without incident into the United States and was, quote, free to travel to desired destinations. Law enforcement officials who alerted Just the News to the FBI's role in April compared the parole decision to an earlier law enforcement controversy known as Fast and Furious scandal, in which federal agents allowed U.S. guns to flow to Mexico cartels in hopes of tracking crimes. The parole in Merchant's case, the official said, would allow agents to fly or to try to flip Merchant as a cooperator or try to determine why he was coming to the U.S., but such tactics also carried a risk that agents might lose track of him, the official said. The records show that Merchant was allowed to stay in the country beyond the expiration date for his parole. So the benefit of the doubt here is that the government knew that he was going to try, our government knew he was going to try to assassinate Trump, so we'll just let him go and see what happens. And we'll give him a date in which he has to leave, but that date expired by months. And they either lost track of him, or they knew what he was doing and did not do anything, because what ended up occurring here is someone reported him to the police. He tried to hire someone to either assist or to kill Trump, and this individual let law enforcement know, and that's when law enforcement, set up a sting and pretended the FBI to be hitmen. So, of course, then the question arises, what if that person didn't call? Would the FBI have stepped in, or would they have let it play out? We don't know the answer to this. Now, as I mentioned, this is something that we covered a couple of weeks ago, the fact that this individual was flagged, but he was let in anyway. And the reason that I bring it up again is because of this story from Just the News. Ryan Routh, this is the most recent attempted assassin of Donald Trump, was interviewed by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials when he returned from Ukraine last year and flagged for further investigation based on spontaneous comments that he made to agents, but the Homeland Security Department declined to act on it. The June 2023 encounter with Routh at the Honolulu airport is confirmed in U.S. border entry records reviewed by Just the News, and his latest tale of missed law enforcement opportunities dating 2019 to stop or further investigation that alleged would-be assassin. The records show that the officials knew Routh had traveled to Warsaw, Poland, near the border of Ukraine, and to Istanbul, Turkey, in 2022 and 2023, and had admitted in his interview that he had been recruiting as many as 100 foreign fighters from Taiwan, Afghanistan, Moldova to join Ukraine's war against the Russian invasion. And the article goes on to explain, further details about what information Just the News uncovered. And Just the News is being pretty generous here in noting that this is just yet another failure of law enforcement. But all of these failures, or at least a number of them, they seem to have this common theme, and that is willfully allowing people into the United States that were flagged, one specifically because of his ties to terrorism. And at what point does that consistency of making mistakes that lead to the almost assassination of Donald Trump become less than just coincidence? How many does it take? As I mentioned, these two instances, because of the manner in which they occurred, one, Trump being shot and another individual being killed, and then the third assassination attempt in which there was gunfire exchanged, the second one of these, not because he didn't get as close as the other two, is getting absolutely no attention. Now, it's obvious. If the shoe was on the other foot, and these were 3 attempts against Kamala Harris, you would hear there were 3 attempts, and who knows how many more. But you're not going to hear that, and you don't hear it when it comes to Trump. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, the first official day of fall is on Sunday, so we know that cooler weather is in the not too distant future. Now, if you've been putting off home repairs, especially repairs to your roof, now is the time to do it. And for all of your roofing needs, I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, during the fall months, you can expect a quicker turnaround and sometimes even better deals. Now, the Pyramid team, they use high-quality products, and they go above and beyond by using ice and water shield and by offering free roof inspections. And they also offer discounts to our military and first responders on new roof installs as well. So whether you need a whole new roof or maybe just a simple roof repair, the Pyramid Roofing Company is the company to trust. Now, you can give Josh a call today and schedule them out at your home, and you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, a couple of different Trump assassination attempt stories here. One, and again, credit where credit is due, while most Democrats are trying to blame Trump for the assassination attempt and or downplay it as if killing him really wouldn't be that big of a deal. One top Democrat senator is blasting the Biden-Harris administration for stonewalling in response to requests for information on the assassination attempts of former President Trump and the potential failures of the U.S. Secret Service. Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat from Connecticut, who's chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations within Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, said the Department of Homeland Security was, quote, almost derelict in its duty by resisting our request for documents, evidence, and information that are necessary to investigate. The Democrat reiterated his disappointment in the department and added that he has become angry that the DHS has not been more forthcoming. Well, why should they? Particularly when you're talking about Mayorkas. This is a guy in which articles of impeachment were passed, and Chuck Schumer refused to even carry out the duties of the Senate of holding a trial in order to protect him regarding security issues at the border. These officials have been trained to recognize that they can do whatever the hell they want, and they don't have to do anything that they don't want to do. It's exhausting listening to, especially a Democrat, pitch a fit over this administration stonewalling. Are you kidding me? Oh, really? Now you're bothered by this? But aside from that, this is learned behavior. This is behavior that has been learned over and over and over again. And when you have an opportunity, as the House did, to hold Merrick Garland accountable for obstructing justice by refusing to turn over the audio tapes of the Biden interviews for that special investigation, and nothing is done? Oh, we'll hold him in contempt. Oh. I mean, they know. And this isn't anything that's brand new. Lois Lerner is, with the IRS, lies about the scope in which the IRS was targeting conservative Americans. You had the former director of the Secret Service who lied under oath about trying to humiliate then Congressman Chaffetz, because he was, back during the Obama years, blowing the whistle about the problems within the Secret Service and the lack of accountability. And so they released the fact that he had tried out for the Secret Service, and he was denied for whatever reasons. And the director of the Secret Service claimed under oath that he had no clue, knew nothing about this conspiracy in order to try and punish the congressman, but then it was learned that he was part of it. I mean, you could just go through the list of instances in which you have these heads of these departments that they lie to Congress, they commit perjury, they obstruct justice. Meanwhile, Republicans go to prison, flat out go to prison. Steve Bannon's one of them. He said, I don't think I have to comply with the subpoena. They threw him in prison. Merrick Garland, he refuses to comply with the subpoena. He's a Democrat. So it's real rich that Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal is angry that Mayorkas is really obstructing this investigation. Oh, okay. I wanted to play audio because, again, of course, conservatives and Republicans are going to demand equal justice and equal treatment. So it's very important when you do see that Democrats are doing it, that it is highlighted, it is welcomed. Pierce Morgan, of course, left-wing journalist, on with Megyn Kelly, talking about the way that the media has been covering the attempted assassinations of Donald Trump.
Yeah, but it's worse than that. It's what it's also doing is massively downplaying what has happened to Donald Trump. And they're doing this quite deliberately. And again, I ask the question, if this had been Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, who twice in the space of 2 months have had assassination attempts on their life, do you think anyone in Americans' mainstream media would be trying to immediately downplay that and immediately look for things that they have both said in the previous year to try and justify the fact that they might also be culpable for potentially creating violence that hasn't actually happened. So there's a complete double standard here in the way they're treating the story.
And of course, he's right. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Because he was back checked on his lies. Come on. I mean, that's on the rules, I think that he agreed to and established before the debate. If that's the best you guys are going to do, it's going to be a tough night, week, and month. And you'll see that reflected in the grievance expressed by Trump. He can't, this night was a
If you have any of those home loan needs, I want a great homeloan.com, and maybe you're ready to pull the trigger. Listen, I know a lot of you're like, well, the interest rates are going to drop, or are they going to go down even more after the election? Should I wait till then? Just reach out to the Carricker team and ask them those questions, and they are going to provide you with a whole bunch of info that you may not be, it's not going to be overwhelming stuff. I mean, they're going to make sure that it's digestible. It's not going to be overly complicated, but it's just so that you're going to make the best decision that you possibly can based off the information that is available. So do not make any decisions regarding trying to time things out based on interest rates, regarding refinancing or a home loan. Get in touch with the Carricker team. You can start that at KSGF. I want a great homeloan.com, because you do. I saw there's a story about how the government is concerned about electric vehicles, and because they're so massively heavy because of the batteries, that the barriers between the interstate, that they may not be enough to stop them. And I just thought that's pretty humorous, because for how long were we told one of the reasons SUVs were evil is because they were bigger and heavier, and that people who couldn't afford an SUV was at a disadvantage and put in danger because of SUVs. Well, now apparently EVs are the bigger, heavier vehicles that the lower class can't afford that are a danger. However, I suspect they won't get the same treatment. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.